Oh, good morning. Wasn't really set to depart now, but as there's a little bit of wind and there isn't supposed to be any, I should take full advantage of it and start a bit of ghosting.
Channel 62, Channel 62 is Milfhaven Coast Guard.
That's Porth, Dinllaen, where I'm coming from. It's an ideal place on the Clint Peninsula as a good crossing point from Ireland, or just a waiting point to get in and out of the Carnarvon Bar as the weather lets you. Protection there is good, except more like northerlies, as you can see. Well, any sailing on a day where there's not supposed to be any wind is good sailing. If you're travelling north from here, you got about 20 miles to get to Carnarvon itself, saying you're going to Carnarvon. If you time it right though, you'll go on a flood. There's good scenery in the way of mountain ranges as you're sailing up here on the starboard side, and the flood can have a fair pace to it on a spring as well, so it can reduce your timings down a little bit. That's pretty flat, that water. Could be a lake, couldn't it? Well, Swallow seems to slip along quite happily when there's not much of a bump on the water, with not much wind, that is. Did I really say not much wind? Where'd it go? Well, it looks like we're just going to have to drift with the tide a little bit and see what happens next. There's just about no wind at all. Get a little jerk, you're getting a needle there. Boing, boing. It's not really jerking, the wind's not springing round up there. It's as the mast moves 6 inches one way, 2 foot the other way, 6 inches one way. So it's not really any wind at all when you look at 2.2 knots. That's more or less like the current's pushing us along at 2.2 knots and we're making that. As you can see by the arrow on my chart plotter in front of the boat, that little green one, the tide's carrying us nicely. Well, we've started getting enough wind now, just about to hold the sails in one place, which will let us start moving again through the water. The wind's a little bit close to the nose, although the main's setting. My genoa keeps collapsing, the camera stripe keeps inverting. That's not going to drive us very well. Well, I can fall off a little bit, I suppose, and fill it up like that. Not quite the right direction, but maybe a little bit more speed. Standby's up on the auto helm, and there's no bungees or nothing looking after the tiller. Just sailing it by sheets at the moment. See how well she can look after herself. If you get it sailing more or less on just sheets, then she'll follow the wind on light airs until it picks up, and then she'll round up. But she's doing okay, and it would be nice if we got this for the rest of the morning all the way up to the bar, that's for sure. The horizon's mostly cleared up now, so that's good news when it comes to spotting the fairway buoy a little bit later on. Those hills look particularly lovely this morning, don't they? A bit picturesque in their own way. The nice part about having 2 or 3 knots on the nose is it soon adds up when you push into it with a little bit of speed, bringing your speed over the ground up to a usable level. I like it when I look up and the camber stripe looks nice and the telltales are flying and the boat's still moving and I know there's virtually no wind whatsoever, because this chap tells me so, but also what I feel on my face is very, very light indeed. I'd like to say that's nearly all tide, that 2.1 knots, but it's not, because I've still got a bow wave, tiny as it may be. Looks like something in a bathtub, but it's a bow wave. The sea says the wind is actually disappearing when I look at it. It's getting very, very much like it's going to turn into a mill pond soon. So I think bin bags will be on the way and the donkey might be taken over. But while we've got enough wind just to keep those sails full and the boat's quite happy to drag herself along, I'll let her get on with it, because it's a peaceful morning. There's hardly even enough wind to lift the telltales up, and they're only made of bits of wool. Well, that's a little bit better, 6. And as you can see, we've got a bit too much east in it to keep a good line. And then it's gone. And we got our bin bags, which is our forecast. So the donkey gets some exercise and the sails can go away for a bit. But at least we had some sailing. I could of course leave the donkey off and just wait for wind to come back, but I'll take a tip out of his book and make the best of the motor. And then again the wind comes back, 7 knots of it, giving me 4 over the ground, which is pretty good. This is when you know you're really lucky, when you're getting some light airs and you shouldn't really be getting them, and they're of a usable nature as well, being able to push you where you want to go. Things are absolutely looking up for this little trip now, picking up a little bit of pace as well. Well, I give this morning a big thumbs up, and if you look round me, there's still flat water everywhere. Not really any wind to speak of, but just enough when you're going into it to get the best use of it. You can even see little mill ponds around me in little places. Those little light patch areas on the water are little bin bags. But our sails are still full, so that keeps us smiling. Well, from this point, Swallow really is a good looking girl, I think. Except for the things that I do to it, of course, because looking down by me feet, and I've left a bit of a mess with the anchor, I could do with tidying that up for a start. Well, at least I know I found mud in Porth, Dinllaen, and that always makes for good holding, doesn't it? I'm squeezing my sails a little bit too much to try and make a little bit more to port. I've got the end of the Genoa there on the end of the spreader. That's not a good idea, I know. But the air's light and it doesn't seem to be moving or rubbing very much. Can you see the way I've got a bit of a hook in the back of the mainsail? I find that works quite well like that in light airs. Stops it backwinding as well if you've got the sails in hard, and still seems to pull quite well. Looking backwards, that's a bit of moody weather which is coming along now. It's coming down from the south and catching up with me as I've been making my way further north. Those clouds have got ahead of me a bit, and they look like there's plenty of water in them ready to go. Well, land ho! And I can just about make out the fairway buoy in the distance there. Hello! And that was a very nice, unexpected visit to end this little sail just before I get into the voyage. You can see by the chart plotter I'm virtually there. I think Lisa's just woke up. Impeccable timing, as always. Almost at the land. But we're squeezing the last of this distance out of these sails. And they do seem to be drawing quite well, considering I'm so close to the wind. So I'm quite happy with the way they're working at the moment. And I'm quite happy with the way just backing that mainsail a little bit in really light airs helps pull. And that's a nice straight wake as well. So I'm really pleased. That's 10 knots of apparent wind, but that is 5.5 knots over the ground. But what you got to remember is I got tide now, or should I say I've got current underneath me. So I might be making 5.5 knots, but the tide's actually probably making about 2. And there's the fairway boy, right on the nose. So we'll be past him in a split second. He's a nice sight to see sometimes when the weather's bad, but when it's really good, it doesn't matter, it just leads you along. It's always good to locate the fairway boy, because the buoyage on Carnarvon Bar changes quite a lot. So when you're at the fairway buoy, you can guarantee you can see the next buoy, and you can guarantee you can see the next buoy, and so on and so forth. One buoy after the other, and you can plan your route ahead of yourself, even if you haven't called up and worked it out. Wind's getting a little bit light now. I've turned away from it. You can feel what the real wind is. Obviously, I was manufacturing a bit of it when I was going into it. So we got 7 knots to play with to drag us across the sands, and as you can see, our speeds dropped down to more or less steerage anyway. If you look at this buoy, you can actually see the water is feeding onto it, so I've got to be careful that I don't slip sideways and end up on there as well. So I'm more or less ferry gliding past it now. See the little bit of a wake behind it. We don't want to be part of that, do we? As we get ever closer, slipping sideways to it just as we pass it. As the air's not as strong at the moment as the current is, every one of these boys is going to get really close to me as I get washed towards it. As I'm heading towards the Mussel Bank and Bellin Narrows, all to my port side is sand, which is the opposite side of Abermenai. The beach carries on all the way up to Newborough Forest, which you can just see starting to come in there. Plenty of trees of Newborough. Plenty of golden sands along here for holiday makers on a nice hot day. But the beaches are normally quite quiet. Judging by this big rainy cloud, the rain's already beat me here. It looks like it's dropping on the other side there. I'm sitting in sunshine here, a quarter of a mile to my port, and it's pouring with rain. But let's try and keep in the sunshine of the nice day. Mussel Bank as we slip past. You see the water's moving quite quick now, so we're more or less, timing's good, which means we're getting dragged through Bellin Narrows, where the opposed to timing being good is pushing your way into a current to try and get through, which is the hardest job in the world. Unless you've got a powerboat, of course, and then you don't worry about anything. Well, 7 knots means that the actual water's slowed down running through here, so I'm probably as late as I want to be, because it turns quite quickly, and I've only really got steerage with the light airs with my sails. I've been through this gap at 13 knots before now, which is absolutely flying, but 7.5 knots, and you've got plenty of time to think about it. Well, I'm going round the back of that sand that you're seeing on my port side, into the anchorage, Abermenai. This anchorage, you just stay right in by the land and it just pulls you along, and in you come. Well, my anchor's down and Lisa's up, so I suppose we'll enjoy this day here then, move on tomorrow, and hopefully the weather will stay nice tonight and we'll have a nice evening. But you never know, the clouds are building and it's very threatening on the forecast. And I've had a cracking sail, considering there was not meant to be any wind at all. So from Abermenai, until next time, bon voyage people.